Hey everyone, welcome to the podcast, Bone Boot Camp with Sarah Purcell. I'm your host, Sarah. This podcast, my newsletter, and all of my programs are designed to help women approach aging with confidence and courage. I'm specifically focused on bone growth promotion and skeleton-safe movements in Bone Boot Camp, the course, and Short and Sweet with Sarah, the membership. In this podcast, I strive to bring you all the most current information on living your best life as you age. Let's get on with today's episode. In today's episode, you will notice that the video quality is spotty. It is with a bit of humor that I tell you that I was ready for an excellent quality recording where we could see the Echolight screen in addition to the participants on the video. Well, sometimes the best of planning and intention doesn't go as you plan. It turned out that the Echolight computer setup did not allow for me to use anything other than Zoom or Skype. I wasn't satisfied with the quality and I toyed with using my iPhone as well as my video camera, and you will see the various camera orientations in this not so perfect video podcast. If you can bear with me, I promise you the next Echolight podcast will have one consistent source of camera and audio with a much higher quality. We will begin the video with my interview with Vicki and Alex from Echolight Medical USA, and we will then move on to see our 28-year-old, 39-year-old, midlife woman, and finally, yours truly, a 62-and-a-half-year-old. My goal is to bring you a variety of age groups so that you can see bone density and quality differences as we age. All of these women have been exercisers for life. In the next podcast, we will alter our plan and we will scan individuals who have not been exercising their entire lives in similar age groups. Without further delay, let's join the podcast. Welcome to Bone Boot Camp, the podcast. I would like to introduce to you my friends from Echolight Medical USA, Alex Exposito, Vice President, and Vicki Baldwin, our Chief Technologist.
Clinical Sales Specialist.
Clinical Sales Specialist. So we've already done my scan, and I learned a little bit about how the machine operates and what they do, but I'd love for all of you to understand how this company came to the U.S., where it came from, what is the technology, and what can it do if we're interested in our bone density. So I'll pass it off to you, Alex, and I'll let the two of you.
Sure. Thanks for the opportunity, Sarah, to be here today and to share this technology with you and with your customers. So Echolight Medical was founded in south of Italy in 2010 as a medical device startup company, a spin-off of the National Research Council of Italy. The idea behind this was to bring bone health assessment to the point of care in a radiation-free type of environment.
Yeah, it wouldn't be in my house if there was radiation.
Yeah.
Correct.
So Alex, the technology was researched and verified over a period of time in Europe, am I correct?
Correct. So this technology, as I said, the company was formed in 2010, and we began doing studies at that time internationally, primarily within Europe and out of Italy. Most of the studies were conducted over multiple years with thousands of patients in those clinical publications. In fact, the database that we currently use to compare normal to osteoporotic bone consists of a database of over 15,000 patients.
Which is great. And that database has been verified against DEXA scans, so that good DEXA scans, and I should qualify it by saying good DEXA scans, so that we know that we're measuring apples to apples?
Correct. So the comparison was done primarily with DEXA. So they wanted to specifically look at axial sites, so the femur and the lumbar spine, and compared that to DEXA examinations in the field. And it came back with a correlation of over 90%.
Oh, awesome. That's great. And so when you approach a scan, your main job is take it.
So you plug in the patient's demographics, and that's going to automatically set them up with a certain algorithm in the system, and then you identify the landmarks with the ultrasound image, and then hit start, and it pretty much does the rest.
So the ultrasound image is not something that you use though when you're calculating the score.
No, the image is just for guidance.
For you to get your
Yes.
probe in the right place.
Correct.
I'm probably calling it by the wrong name.
Yeah, you did a
Using
good
a
job.
probe.
Yeah. It's a transducer technically,
Transducer.
but yeah.
So you find the site that you want. You've been trained to know what you're looking
Yes.
for. And essentially, are you locking on to a spot?
As much as possible,
Okay.
but you know, slight movements throughout the scan as long as you stay on the region that you want to, the region of interest, it's going to get what it needs.
So it's not taking the image for the calculation. Doesn't
No.
really care what it looks like.
No, the image has nothing to do with the information that comes in the report.
Okay. So it then takes data that
From
If-
this, from the scan lines that bounce back from the bone when you're doing the scanning, it analyzes that information after the scan is done, and it plots it against all that information from all those studies.
right. And so an interesting thing for us all to know, and just make sure we're all in the same place, is that that bounce back, if it's going through, trying to go through metal versus trying to go through soft tissue,
Right.
that's kind of what tells you.
So a DEXA would, the x-rays would actually be absorbed by that metal. And so it's going to account that metal as part of the density.
Of my bone, if I had it.
Yeah.
Wow.
And our algorithm will notice that the spectral analysis is off and will actually discredit that information. So it completely blocks it from the report. So if you have inaccurate data, it won't add it to the report.
Oh, interesting. And by that same token then, if I have calcifications on my spine from some osteoarthritis, what does it do with that data?
If it's not a normal bone algorithm, it discredits it.
Be done. Okay. So we essentially, the literature has shown us that we're getting a more accurate picture then as we get older, and we might have things like arthritis or previous fractures that are healed. Is that
I think the potential here is with DEXA, you've got certain criteria that needs to be met in order for you to have a DEXA examination done. This technology being radiation-free gives you the opportunity to establish a baseline way before that, where you can actually do something about your current state of your bone health as you look forward.
sounds good?
Yeah.
Sounds good. I wish I had known when I was 30, because I likely, as a 5 foot tall, only when I'm pregnant have I weighed over 100 pounds. So we're looking at not a lot of weight to get that ground reaction force to create the muscle contraction to compress the bone. So I was probably osteopenic right from the age of 30, likely.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. We didn't have the technology in a radiation-free way, certainly. And actually, when I was 30, the DEXA wasn't even that available. for
Yeah.
someone like me.
And they wouldn't have done it on you anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So for me, as a mother and a grandmother, I'm thinking about the hope for the future that if my entire family is petite, there is actually hope to have more information and go forward with nutrition, sleep, water, all of the things, and weightlifting, all of the things that we need. And weightlifting happened for me later in life, but we can all start earlier.
That's right.
So we've just talked about bone density, but I also received from you a bone quality score. And that bone quality score actually gave me a lot of good information about why I've fallen on the tennis court and not broken a bone, because I've got really good bone quality, particularly for my age. So let's talk about what is bone quality. I mean, I know what it is, but let's talk about it for everybody else.
Sure.
So you're referring to your fragility score, and that's a score that we have from 0 to 100. 0 is the most normal bone, 100 is the most fragile bone, and it's actually going into the actual microarchitecture of the bone. So you had a very good, strong bone microarchitecture, even though you were osteoporotic from a bone density, bone mineral density standpoint.
Right. So it may well be, I'm just working totally on theory because I don't know from my DEXA scans anything about my previous quality. But I am thinking, I've swayed back and forth between osteoporosis and osteopenia, and as I age, it would theoretically be difficult for me to continue that march towards osteopenia, and I do recognize that and understand that. So I'm glad to see that it is possible that the weightlifting helped with the microarchitecture, and I'll continue to do it.
Yes.
So thank you for joining us, and I hope to be coming to you again in the future with more information on this kind of technology. I really have great hopes that we see this in doctors' offices, not only across this country, but Canada, Mexico, and beyond.
We're going to make sure that your bone is right in the middle of the screen, so I got to make a couple of adjustments to make that happen. And we'll bring down this focus. So this is our focal line. It's going to go right above your bone interface right there.
Stress fractures because I used to run track.
Oh, okay.
So,
that's interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Did they ever like work you up or look into that, or they just kind of treated your stress fractures and sent you on your way?
I
Okay.
think they said it was likely because of my flat feet,
Okay.
but it was in high school, so it's been over 10 years.
Was it in the like long bones of your foot, or
It was the tibula, is that correct? The shin?
Oh, so it was up here.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. All right, let's see what we got here. You have beautiful bones.
Oh, wow.
So you're way up here in the green. And so this, you can see it. I know there's a little bit of a glare, but so you're in the normal range. Your T-score is 0.8, which is normal, which is gorgeous. Your fragility score is 10 out of 100, which is good.
The density is going to decrease.
And that's true for anybody. That's just
Yeah,
a
that's
normal
true
part
for
of
all
aging.
of us. But here's the interesting thing. You are so young, you're not even at your peak bone density yet. Your peak is closer to 30. And everybody's different, so we don't know specifically for you exactly what year is your peak. You still have time to raise that higher. So weightlifting and nutrition and good sleep would probably be things to maybe talk to your doctor about, or just say, I got this really cool score and I want to make it better, because that's what I personally think is the most awesome thing. At 62, I can continue to weightlift and eat right and get sleep and hydrate and do all those things, but I don't have the time you have to change my graph the way, and you're already in green, which is awesome. But what you can do basically by moving, if you can imagine taking the line, so that dot is you, the black dot. If you, the projection is that you would travel a little higher than that line, but the projection is saying somewhere around the age of 65 or maybe,
It's probably around the 55.
Okay, 55, right around menopause, would be when you're projected to move towards osteoporosis, but that's not your destiny. It doesn't have to be that way.
You can be proactive now and take care of yourself now, and you'll be better later.
Yeah, and basically what this is saying is all humans move that way, but there's one other piece that you have to share.
So this is just your bone mineral density. This is just how heavy your bones are, pretty much. So this next page is actually going to show us your microarchitecture. Think of like a really lightweight steel bridge that is minimal, but yet it's carrying all this traffic on it. So this is your fragility score. So this is actually looking at your bone's microarchitecture and the strength of the microarchitecture.
So the quality of your bones.
Yes. So you're way down here in the green. So your fragility score is 20.6. So that's from 0 to 100. So you're in really good.
We good? What's your name?
Yuck. Yucky, yucky.
Yucky, that looks amazing. I want to touch it. Right?
This looks like something I can play in.
Gooey. You're doing real good there, huh?
All right, so you see your bone up here on the screen. So basically, you know, with most ultrasound, we're looking for images to be the diagnosing factor. This is just for guidance. So that's your bone, that's your femoral head, and your...
I can't see anything, but I believe you.
There we go.
Okay.
You sort of see it now?
Yep.
You see your finger?
Mm-hmm.
Your femoral head now? All right, so I'm just gonna adjust a couple things. So it's actually right where I want it. I'm gonna go ahead and hit start. So it's really quick.
Okay. It's very interesting. It's like a body video game, right?
Yeah. So your T-score is -0.5. That's great. That's normal. They're good.
I don't know what the scale is, so
Fragility. So
Uh-huh.
not only do we look at how dense your bones are, but the microarchitecture. So how well they're built.
okay.
So your fragility score is 11.1, which is awesome. On a scale of 0 to 100.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you have
Gotcha.
some strong
I got some-
microarchitecture.
I have good microarchitecture.
Yes, you are good.
have
So
a
your
feeling.
fracture risk at 5 years is less than 1%.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, you're good.
Interesting though is she hasn't seen the microarchitecture of her spine yet.
Right.
Could be better than
could be.
osteopenia.
So, like I said, 0 to 100, 0 being great, 100 being bad.
Okay.
You sit at 20.
Okay.
So
not bad.
your microarchitecture is still here, good in the normal range down here to green.
Okay.
So it's going to combine both of these factors, and it puts you in a risk class of R3 for your spine,
Gotcha.
and that's 10 to 20% risk of fracture in 5
Okay.
years, as you are currently.
Gotcha. Well, we need to do another one of these in 6 months.
Yes.
After we do bone density, building practices,
Yes.
and see if we get better.
Yeah.
The message that you are giving that's very relevant, whether it's me or them, is that that you can go in the opposite direction. It's not a downward trajectory from this assessment necessarily,
Absolutely.
and it depends on what you do.
Right.
So yeah, sometimes I think people become measurement obsessed and start defining themselves by the measurements and letting fear be like like a motivator, which I don't love fear as a motivator personally. But at the same time, occasionally getting something that's measurable so that you can then have a benchmark, I think is really helpful and healthy.
Right.
Yeah, so,
It just helps you helps you plot your course.
Exactly, yeah, exactly.
So yeah, you can see the scroll bar down here at the bottom. Each acquisition is 20 seconds. And see the progress right there. And so like when you look at an ultrasound image, you typically think the diagnosis usually comes from the actual image.
Right.
So we're just using the image just to guide us
Okay.
to where the bee needs to assess. Your bone density, everything's up now. So you are just over the line in osteoporosis.
What is that over the line meaning?
This is where you're at.
Okay.
So this is the line that's going to kind of plot your development if you don't change anything.
Okay.
Or,
Yeah.
So you have a T-score of -2.9, osteoporosis. This is just your bone density.
Yeah.
This fracture risk assessment down here, that is going to actually go into your bone microarchitecture. That's a little bit more on the next page. But so your fragility score is 12 out of 100. So 0 is great, 100 is like the worst,
Oh, okay.
and it's only a 12.
Oh, so 12 is
So
good. Okay.
you have even though you have osteoporosis, you only have a 15 to 30% risk of fracture
Okay.
in 5 years.
So that's
Jenny, one of the things maybe you guys can talk about is the fact that Jenny's very petite.
Yeah.
yeah.
So I do have osteoporosis then. But
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
From a bone mineral density standpoint, yeah,
Right. That's what this is. Yeah. So
you just
the architecture.
right. You think of like one of those crazy looking minimalistic like steel bridges that looks like, how does that thing hold up anything?
Yeah.
It's because it's engineered properly and has a great,
Gotcha. Yeah.
yeah. So
Architecture.
same thing,
Okay. Cool.
kind of. But so over here, it's just giving you some more numbers. You have a BMD and T-score and all that on your total hip and on your trochanter as well. So, all right. And so this is the fragility score page.
Okay.
And all this green down here is normal. And then you have osteopenia and osteoporosis.
Okay.
Here you right smack in the middle of the green.
Okay.
So you have very strong bones
Okay, that's
from a
good.
microarchitecture standpoint. So, I mean, that's probably better than my 13-year-old daughter's.
Really?
Yeah, so that's great.
I don't even do anything.
So we have Ginny here with our technician Vicky, and we just wanted to ask Ginny what she thinks of getting a bone scan prior to your doctor ordering one. What do you think about it?
It was very interesting, very insightful, very helpful. I found out things that I would never have known, and found out in a way that I don't want to say wasn't scary, if that's like too dramatic, but finding out about, because I am petite, I just assumed that I did have some osteoporosis, but finding out that the architecture of my bones actually doesn't mean that it's the end of the world and that I have to take pills and all that other kind of stuff that might, a doctor might recommend. It was just a very helpful and insightful process.
Yeah, and much the same as two petite Pilates instructors. I am excited to show my doctor that my microarchitecture is quite strong, and so we can have an interactive conversation about treatment, and maybe my
Yeah.
treatment continues.
They don't have to.
Yeah, maybe my treatment continues to be eating right, Pilates, sleeping, my weightlifting.
Yeah, the treatment wouldn't have to be as aggressive
Right. And,
as it would be if they
Yes.
just had
and knowing
a
that
T-score to go
right.
by.
And seeing that curve and knowing that as we age, and I'm postmenopausal, so it's a little more difficult for me to maintain my bone density. So it's not out of the question that one day I might need some medication, but for right now, my weightlifting and my nutrition and my sleep and my water are hopefully going to get me through the day.
Yeah, I was actually happy with the outcome of how my bones are and my, architecture and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Because, it's not as, bad as I thought it might be. So, and knowing that what I'm doing is actually helping. I mean, I really just do Pilates for workout, but I do eat healthy, and this is a good thing for our clients too, right? So
But now you have knowledge for,
And knowledge,
And
exactly.
maybe your weightlifting
all those
man
load-bearing
might start
exercises.
asking me, and since I work with him from time to time, maybe I'll say, maybe you need to get Ginny on those weights.
Exactly. I should, exactly.
Oh, well, great. Well, thank you both for being here.
Thank you for having me. This was a great experience.
This is my bone microarchitecture as represented by a fragility score. Vicky noted that the black mark in the green indicates I still have normal bone quality. The next page delineates the ranges of scores for risk classification. The top chart or matrix shows that the best I can do with osteoporotic density is an R5. That's a scale of 1 to 7. With the 1 to 7 scale, I'm in a 5. That gives me a 15 to 30% chance of fracturing in the next 1 to 5 years. My body composition came up next. And then finally, there are images that show and verify that Vicky captured the right area of the bone in order to give me my scores. With all of that said and done, we reviewed backwards and just saw my BMI again, and then the fragility score, the actual bone microarchitecture, and then the fact that I'm slightly into the red with osteoporosis in density.